lots of questions. Okay, maybe up here in the front first.
Yeah, I was actually, well, I'm inspired by everybody here. My name is Francesca Rhiannon, and I'm with CSRwire.com. But I was very inspired by what you were saying, David, the connections, the matrix within which we live, the world. And there is actually a developing policy application of that, which I find extremely exciting. And that's at the level of law. The development of what's called wild law, or the law of the ecological commons. There's an incredible suit, I'm sure most of us know, many of us know about it, that was brought forward started by this kid when he was, what, 13, now he's 16, and he's beginning with the help of lawyers from different law departments suing the states and the federal government on the public trust doctrine. So that's an example of that.
Great.
Okay, I'm being passed the mic, so I guess. I wanted to say two things. You did the little black dress project. I have owned the same little black dress for 12 years. The only difference over the years, and there's some people in the audience who will understand this, I have to keep getting it shortened every year as I get shorter. But if I wore that little black dress every day, then, okay, there are some people here over whatever age. And, but if I wore it every day in a year, then I wouldn't have had it 12 years. Now, okay, so moving from the completely personal to something totally universal, at least having to do with our planet, planetary versus universal. No one has talked about tonight. We have the luxury of being little Thoreaus, should we want, because we live in a culture of plenty. Little black dress again, you're talking about accessorizing it with leftovers, and you were talking about enjoying consumption at thrift shops. That's only because we live in an economy of plenty. How do we deal with this issue in developing, vis-a-vis developing economies where people don't have the option of turning off the air conditioning because they can't afford the air conditioning, because they, even more important, they don't have water and food consumption. So how do you want to look at your personal experiments vis-a-vis a planetary policy?
We can go around. I think that when it comes to the developing world, they really need to not follow the Western example at all. And it's unfortunate because I think that Asia, especially when you look at the population, has the biggest task ahead of them, and then the rest, Latin America and Africa to follow. But with Asia particularly, the developing world has been so subservient intellectually to the West that they've just blindly followed the Western model of consumerism and consumption and production. And in Asia, especially now, I've just had the privilege of traveling around Asia for the last 2 years many times on several occasions related to the Uniform Project and getting into a lot of these discussions. And it's really clear that it's really a very exciting time to be in Asia because there's money coming in, and it's the middle class has just blown up, and there's absolutely no planning in terms of how it's growing, and it's a really, really scary thought because one, if all the Asians, I think you mentioned before, if everyone starts consuming the way Americans do, we're looking at I think something like 5 billion just in Asia in the next 50 years, which we can't even possibly consume, fathom what that means. So I really think it's about not, the developing world needs to really sever their ties to the Western economic model and look to creating, and they have the privilege of doing that because as far as the developed world is concerned, we're kind of done. We're very smug, and we're like, yeah, we have a functioning, successful model, which isn't true, but there's a sense of smugness here, which you don't have in Asia, and people are actually that there's an opportunity to redefine everything from scratch, and that's not happening because political leaders are just excited about, filling their pockets and following the West. So that's.
Okay, let's see if we can get 3 questions together. So just pass out, and then we'll have the panel answer those 3. So we'll start back there, and then.
I'm wondering whether acquisition is a function of youth. I'm going to be 80 my next birthday, and I know that when people are young, they have to consume. They have to build a house. They have their children. They have to take care of their children. They have to work to provide for them. They have to make a living. They have to put away so they can educate the children. I mean, I have none of those responsibilities. I live in an apartment that is probably smaller than this room. I mean, my whole space. It's the living room. I call it a living room. And the way the furniture is arranged means that I have a foyer, because there's a bookcase here when you come in the door, so that's the foyer. The other side of the bookcase is the living room. And then over by the windows is my study. All the books are in there. The kitchen is around the corner. And the dining area
That's
is
small.
big. It's teeny.
So do you have a question? Can we get to the question we have?
Well, my question is that I asked it to begin with, is acquisition a function of youth? As people get older, I think they need to consume less. I have my books, my computer, my email, and I'm happiest that I have ever been in my entire life. It seems to me everybody on the panel is young. Is anybody over 50 up there? Okay. That's not meant to be a criticism, it's just an inquiry.
Thank you so much for your question. We have a bunch. Can you just wrap? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's have 2 more.
Thank you. I'm Michelle Moore. I'm a happiness researcher, and my company is Happiness Habit. And one thing that I've really enjoyed this tonight, but I've missed, is that I think a lot of people think about what you're talking about as being dreary, in denial, and deprivation. But what I've heard in all of your comments was it was very creative, challenging, and rewarding. And I think perhaps the message that might come through is that everybody needs to try this for a year or for 6 months or whatever. And my question is, how can we kind of repackage this, that this is fun and it's freedom, and you're a lot happier if you try and embrace some of your experiments, even for a short period of time.
Hey there. My wife and I are now apparently asking a joint question, so apologies if this seems like 2 questions hastily strung together. Vicky, I love what you were saying before about community currencies, and I'm a huge fan. And we also talked about like government sort of like large-scale interventions in things like healthcare. How do you reconcile the sort of like community currencies, which obviously are untaxed and sort of unregulated, and their role in sustainability versus kind of obviously like, paying federal taxes in US dollars and the federal government's role in sustainability? And like what things become possible when you have this local currency as the one that you were talking about?
And the wife speaks. Relatedly, what I was wondering is we haven't talked about the internet at all, and we've talked a lot about in-person community building, and I think that's vital. But as someone who has recently married an internet fiend, I'm learning more about internet community and wondering how we can use that to the benefit of the things we're talking about tonight.
I want to take a sort of a generalized stab, a sort of scattershot at a bunch of things I've heard. Okay. So on this question of happiness, how many people here have read Your Money, Your Life or are familiar with it? Okay. So anyway, one of the things we do is we tell people that actually you buy money with your time. Money is your life energy. The money in your wallet represents hours that you invested on the job to get it there. And even if you live on credit cards, eventually those are hours in the future you're going to invest to pay it off. So money is your time. And then we have people translate their purchases in terms of time.
So my argument about the SUV is not all the other things we can say about the SUV, but just asking somebody, do your real hourly wage calculation. Determine how many hours of your life you're going to spend getting that SUV. I said, you know, look, it's probably, I'll just shortcut, it'll take you 3 years of your life to buy the hunk of metal to take you back and forth to the job so that you can buy the hunk of metal. I actually have something better to do with those 3 years of my life. It's fine with me if you want to spend them that way. I'm not doing that. In other words, it turns it on its head. So I say I buy my freedom with my frugality every day. Every day. And I used to say when I was out there in the speaking tour, I said, I feel like I'm just making the world safe from frugality. You know, I spend very little money and I don't look, I'm clearly not undernourished. And I'm happy, healthy. I'm 66 next week, you know? So, anyway, so that's that on the happiness piece. I mean, I think all of us would be about that. And then this question of the complementary currency is that, you know, it's what David's saying about local. It's like what I was saying also about scale-appropriate regulations. The Western mind is an either-or, yes, no, on-off, black-white mind. So you talk about local currency, and what comes up in the Western mind is, well, what about taxes? What about how are you going to support, you know, national sickness care insurance if you have local currency? No, it's going to be, you know, we just don't have any subtlety in our currency system. We need currencies, ways to trade goods and services locally, facilitating that, and then ways to trade it regionally and nationally, so you have all different levels of scale. And this goes to this question of the internet. I think one of the most exciting things I see in terms of what we're talking about is all the little apps that are being developed for the sharing world. You know, like there are now apps in major cities, I don't know if it's New York, you know, so that you can actually, quote unquote, rent your car to your neighbor. You know, so everybody, we all have underutilized resources in our garages and in our lives. How do we share those resources responsibly and safely with people who live right nearby us? How do we, I live in a place where we take a ferry, you know, how do we like share rides across to Seattle? There aren't mechanisms, but the internet is going to permit us to have mechanisms at a level of scale that's going to actually make a difference. So we're going to share rides, we're going to share clothes, we're going to share food, we're going to share, you know, rides to church, we're going to share entertainment, and we're going to share charades. And so I think when technology can support us in that sharing economy, that's when we're going to this thing is going to take off. So those are
A couple quick